Hope the mic's working. Ram, thank you. So I think I'm the comedy part of the event. Yeah, there was so much tech stuff discussed here that I think the marketing teams are going to have trouble selling this technology. All of them will go claim their marketplaces, which is what's raising money these days. So, so how many of you guys actually read your story on a daily basis? Show of hands, please. Okay. Do you guys read it for funding information or finding corporates that want to work with startups? Show of hands, everybody. So we are actually a bridge to the corporate world, and the reason I'm doing this is, for two things. One is startups come to me and ask me two questions. The first thing they ask me is, can you connect me to a corporate? And then they say, can you connect me to a fund? Okay, and both of them are very tricky, as you heard the previous panel talk about this. Okay, why am I here? Okay, last year I spoke with about 340 startups and 70% of the B2B space, and of that 70%, which is about 248 B2B startups, do you know how many actually have paying customers? Would you want to take a guess? How many of them have paying customers? Anybody? Nobody? Okay. There are only about 15 companies that I've met that have more than 5 paying customers. That's a very dismal situation. It's a terrible problem. And I think if you don't scale up to more than 5 paying customers, your business is not viable. And there are a few reasons for this. I'll take you through it. Okay? So I took you through your stories, already bridged them with a lot of startups, especially with people like ONGC. I'll talk about them in a bit. Okay? And I'll tell you why Indian corporate is slow in signing deals too. So why are corporates difficult to crack? Sometimes, all of us have a problem. We go and say that the government is very bureaucratic. Wait till you get to a corporate like Tata's or the Aditya Birlas. They're as bureaucratic as the government themselves. Okay? And most of the contacts or connects that you guys have with corporate is through personal relationships. They don't have a streamlined process to help you. Okay, how do you get to the right decision makers? One of the things that I'll talk about. It's a challenge. Sometimes corporates make you run around, and in the end, they'll tell you that they're not interested in working with you. The sales cycles are long, and they burn your resources. Sometimes, typically, being a business editor, I have done sales with with a lot of tech companies, and the cycles are long, 8 months. Okay, sometimes it's really disheartening. And you end up spending all those hours, a maximum of about 40 to 50 hours of your time just trying to convince these guys that you can actually make money for them. But in the end, they don't sign deals. Okay, so some of them offer pilots, but they don't sign deals. They don't offer you long-term contracts. So why is a journalist here, right? And it's unfortunate that startups have to come to a journalist for advice, right? You want to talk to industry and make sure that they make it easy for you. Here are some corporates that work with startups. Tata Motors, I met their global startup evangelist, Mr. Timothy Leverton, and he says he's worked with 16 of Indian startups, and he thinks most of them don't know how to build a narrative. And building a narrative is very important. And if you don't build your narrative, probably they'll let you go, and probably in a couple of minutes they'll say that it doesn't work for them. So they worked with 16 companies, probably pilots of 1 month, and then they've let them go. Most of it for their app interfaces. If you've heard of their new car, the Hexa has app interfaces. They've worked with 16 companies. They wanted to build a cloud interface for the car. It's not worked out. Then there's Mahindra & Mahindra. You go to their factories in Pune. They have IoT set up. They have a couple of IoT companies that track what their robots do. Again, this is perhaps the only company that's been working with them for 3 years. You want to hear about this story. It's called Covaxis. The Future Group. Okay, recently the Future Group is actually making a lot of inroads in tech. Most of us startup community give Mr. Kishore Biyani a lot of flack. But actually, I'll tell you in a bit that he's an amazing person to meet if you're a startup. The Aditya Birla Group, again, they're focused more on the retail side of it. They want to talk about e-commerce. They have a brand called TrendIn, which basically works on virtual reality machines and all that. But again, nothing has flown in their side of things. Shopper Stop, again, fintech. Again, a couple of startups. Robert Bosch, as of last year, has worked with about 10 startups. They work with a startup called Bezerk, B-E-Z-E-R-K. Again, B-E-Z-E-R-K. I would ask you to look at this company because they've scaled up in the USA to over about 2,000 retail stores in America, and it's not easy. How did they do that? You know, basically, they had their narrative right. They're an engagement platform where you walk into a retail store and your mobile phone, because of Bluetooth, you know, targets you based on the aisle that you're in. It's an amazing company. You should check them out. Okay, some of the usual suspects, the accelerators you've all heard about, Target, SAP, Microsoft. IIMs are a cream of our country, and most of them who breeze through these accelerators are people from that community. Of the 248 B2B startups that I meet, you know, 90% of them are from other colleges. It really saddens me that just because they don't know communication or forming a narrative about their companies, they don't land up here, and then they get forgotten, although their tech is brilliant, by the way. Okay, let me just talk to you about what the CEOs think. You know, Kishore Biani, you go to him, you know, every year I meet him, I go to him, he talks to me in Hindi, and it's always staccato. Being a South Indian, I can't, you know, really understand what he says. But you know, the only thing he understands is money. If you are able to convince him in that 2 minutes that your startup can make money for him, he's definitely going to give you time. And by the way, he works with several of them. As of now, he's actually signing up a deal with a fintech company. What else? I mean, there's a company called Manthan. It's an analytics company, if you've heard of them. The founder of Manthan, right, convinced Biani in about 3 minutes in New York that he had to do away with a corporate data analytics platform called Dunnhumby. And he won that deal in 3 minutes, basically by telling him that if you're in the retail business, you need real-time analytics about your customers, you know, integrating loyalty programs with your ERP, and then having it in the cloud, and you know, calculating your customers' behavior on a real-time basis. And that's what Manthan did. And I meet Kumar Mangalam Birla, say, every now and then in press conferences, and he doesn't talk to the media on a personal basis. But when you ask him about startups, you know, he confuses you. He says, e-commerce, we might want to do something in e-commerce. And then you want to say, why did I ever want to talk to him? As of now, Vishal Sikka, perhaps Infosys is who's talking about so many things about innovation and how startups can change the role in our country. But funnily enough, they've acquired none in India. Neither have they worked with many. But surprisingly, between 98 and 2004, Infosys had invested in a lot of Indian companies. It's about time they got in here, perhaps because they think the quality of Indian engineers is not good. And you know what's happening in Infosys of late. So then coming down to Pradeep Kar of Microland, right? He's a brilliant guy. He says a lot of startups don't reach out to him because he thinks they don't come from a strong academic foundation. Again, coming back to the narrative, if your tech is simple to understand, if you can say why it makes business sense to them, these guys will take you seriously. Then, you know, Ratan Tata supports your story, of course. And you should actually come to us to get his time. Then the investor community, as they spoke, they decide your stars, which is very unfortunate. You know, but I agree with them. In the previous panel, the Lightspeed Ventures person and the Sequoia person is saying that if your narrative is wrong, you know, even, you know, God alone help you. So here is how it works. If you ever go to a corporate, you have partner scouting programs. I was actually doing an analysis of about 500 companies in India who have a turnover of more than 1,000 crores. All of them today want to work with innovative companies like you. So they have a scouting partner. I mean, usually he takes the form of a CMO, or the CEO himself, or the founder himself would probably take an interest in meeting you guys. So the best way to do is get emails of these people, and write to them, and they'll definitely meet you. So meet the decision maker and the champion. I mean, of the companies that I covered, the technology side, the CTO and the CMOs become your champions, but unfortunately, they're not the ones who sign the checks to make you partners, right? It's usually the CFO that is a decision maker. So figure out a way to influence this community. So is there a division head? Yes, most of the traditional family businesses have division heads who make decisions, and they're a hard nut to crack. I would say don't waste your time with these guys if they stall you for 3 months or 4 months. I think any sales cycle, if it's more than 2 months or 3 months, is not good for you. You don't have to work with these guys. Okay, all contracts that you sign should have commercial sign-offs. I'm saying don't do pilots because don't think it's charity that they're doing for you. Please ask them to pay. Please prove your worth. Say that you mean something to them, right? And only if it's commercial does it make sense for you to. And make sure that all the liabilities, the warranties, the indemnification, notice for breakout and commercials, right, are all signed and in order. Get a good lawyer. I mean, if you really get a pilot, get a good lawyer, solve your problems, make sure that these guys take you seriously. This is also in a way of telling these guys that you're a bit more professional and you can actually scale up. Okay? Focus on minimal rollout with stability, reliability, and security. Yes, you can say that you will do about 20 stores. If in a retail context, because I come from a retail background, you could say, okay, I'll do 20 of your stores. I'll show you how rapidly I can scale up. Prove the technology first, and then say that you can roll out to a larger number of stores. Okay? As I covered that, make sure you get paid again. Show them that you can scale your product quickly. Okay, interesting partnerships that I've noticed. Okay, ONGC of all people, right, has signed a chatbot messenger service. Can you believe it? The reason they're doing it is because they want to get rid of bureaucracy of their people communicating with each other. So there's an interesting Bangalore-based chatbot company. They don't want to be named. So they've got a long-term contract with these folks. Then there's a 800 crore packaging company, which probably makes about 52 million bottles for Coca-Cola a day, right? They have signed up with a Pune-based company to track what their machines are doing. And then I covered Mahindra and Mahindra, which basically works with Coaxis. Xiaomi, interestingly, Xiaomi came to this country a couple of years ago and said they're going to go all out digital, but then they found out that Indians love their local mobile retailer or local kirana. So they have tied up with a distribution tech company to reach wholesalers. And you should check this company out. It's called Shotang. They're doing a fantastic job in Bangalore. They've scaled up in Bangalore and 5 other cities. Then Cloud9 Hospitals, which is a Sequoia-funded company, and obviously Matrix also. This man, probably, perhaps if you're an IoT company, the founder, Rohit M.A., one of the co-founders, is a young guy. You should reach out to him directly. He's worked with more than 10, 12 startups, happy to give you pilots, happy to explain why you fail. He gives you feedback, he shares data with you, and he's directly involved in your sales processes after you finish a pilot, right? He signs off the commercial arrangements with you guys. So what do you do when all else fails? This is just basically general gyan, as you call it, but you have to build your network. There's no other way. Your social network. I meet some of the best brilliant minds, but where they fail is they sometimes know what their technology does, but they don't know how to explain it to their peer group or their colleagues or the network, which is the VC community or the industrial community. So train yourself to have clarity. Again, do not talk things that matter. Usually, you meet a business guy, try to talk to him about business. You meet an engineer, you talk to him about engineering, right? I mean, understand where that fellow is coming from, that person's background. Do a lot of background check. Just don't think that going there for a meeting will solve all your problems and you'll get a pilot. Build your product. Sometimes I think your product defines your whole story. I think the product is what defines the market. I mean, sometimes the market might not be ready for certain things, but if your product is good, if your narrative is good, you guys will be the winners. So understand that there are a million opinions, okay? A lot of people will come and say you can't do it. So I think the hotel folks need the place immediately because I think there's a wedding or something. So I'll run through a couple of slides quickly. Okay, last one. I go back. Okay, so how can the media help? Remember, all of you need a narrative, right? Practice your sales on media, people. If the journalist doesn't get it, I think even engineers or even other people in the investing community won't get it, okay? Please spend time with a journalist or please spend time with your communications person to simplify your technology so that they reach out to the world and tell you that this is how you reach out to a hex number of people, okay? Make sure you participate in industry stories, which means, don't just limit yourself to one single story in the media. Go talk to them regularly, keep iterating with them, keep yourself in the public eye by being quoted in stories, and be available for comment at short notice. Help journalists write better. But last but not least, do not take the journalist's view seriously. He or she might have opinions about you, but don't think this is the end of the world. They are just one opinion. And take criticism sportingly. It gets worse when you get to corporate. I would just say that take it easy. I think all of you are building great products in the country, and you're the future. So thank you again. Thank you very much.
Vishal, thank you so much. We really appreciate
you. You can reach out to me at Vishal S. Krishna. That's my Twitter handle, and I'm happy to help all of you because I personally have connected about 40 or 50 startups to corporate. So thank you.
Thanks, Vishal. We really appreciate you
Thank you.
coming in.